Hello and welcome to Back at Burris, the podcast where current Burris students chat with Burris alumni. I'm your host, Graham Reeder, and I'm here today with St. Joshi.
Hi there.
So, when did you graduate from Burris?
1976. Well, and I started as a in seventh grade. So that would have been 1970. My family, both my parents were professors at BSU. And we had moved from Indianapolis, and then before that we were in Urbana, Illinois. And before that we were in India, of course. I come from India. My mother, math professor at Ball State forever, and she's still there. She's at Westminster Village now and the assisted living, still doing well at the age of 95.
Woo!
Yeah, that's been pretty impressive. I saw her not long ago. Really, still doing pretty well. That's all things considered. But yeah, she taught math there, and my father taught economics. Every so often. Um, so. And they actually had to pull a few strings to get me into Burris because we lived on, I don't know, Normandy Drive. I don't know if you know where that is. It's sort of just south of Jackson Street, kind of the southwest part of Muncie. And I think we were technically just outside the zone where Burris, where you could go to Burris. And so she said, no, I want you to go to Burris instead of, I would have had to go to Storer for junior high. I don't think that exists anymore, does it?
I think it does, actually.
Oh, does it? Okay, I thought it did.
Oh, wait, no, it just got taken down recently, actually.
All right.
The
Well, anyway,
building's been
so
there for a while.
she always thought Burris was a better place to go, and so I got into seventh grade and went all through high school.
Yeah, I joined in middle school. I came here in middle school myself.
Oh.
I lived in Illinois for a long time as well.
Did you?
Yeah.
Funny. I loved Urbana, Illinois. University of Illinois. My parents taught there too. Lovely little college town. But and Muncie, I think Muncie was a great town too. And I'll tell you, I was at Ball State all the time, of course, because they had all sorts of stuff there. I went to the library. My mother let me borrow, use her card, ID card to borrow books from the, Ball State Library. Went to, they had a good music program because I love music, and they had a lot of great classical music performances. And Burris had a really good music program too. We can get into that later if you like. And I did a lot of stuff with the Burris music program.
Oh yeah. So how long has it been since you've been back in this building? Have you been here since the renovations at all?
I was just in Burris. Oh God, yes, just a couple of weeks ago, as a
Oh,
matter of fact,
really?
because I think, oh yeah, because my sister, who's a couple of years older than me, Nalini, she had her 50th high school reunion. My God, hard to believe. And it was set up by some people in the class. I mean, apparently there used to be a Burris Alumni Association. It's kind of fallen on hard times apparently, but that's okay. And but the class of 1972 did set up a reunion for whoever wanted to come, and I said, all right, I'll come too, because it was also a chance to visit my mother and stuff like that and see other folks at Burris. So yeah, and then there was on that Saturday of sometime in late September, I think it was, they had a guided tour of Burris, led by some students, and it was fascinating. And I'd been there before too. I will say that stepping into Burris, with all the outside is beautiful, still that lovely brick facade, but stepping inside, it's all changed. It did kind of freak me out because it's not the school I knew anymore. But whatever. For example, we didn't even have a cafeteria. I mean, there was no cafeteria.
Really?
You just brought your own lunch or went to BSU for lunch or whatever. They had a good student center there. I don't think the college students liked the Burris folks going over there, but we didn't care.
we're
We
a
went
little
there.
annoying.
That's right. We're supposed to be annoying in high school, but yeah, and it just whatever. There's still things that are the same. The auditorium looks exactly the same as I remember.
I've heard a lot of people say that.
Yeah, it's like it's a blast from the past, but yeah, I mean, I'm just glad Burris is doing so well. It seems to be thriving.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say some things about how the building used to be before the renovations, and god dang, I kind of wish we had some of those still. Like the
Oh yeah,
staircases and the skylights, like...
I know there's a certain character, that goes with these old buildings, and hey, you gotta move with the times. You got to have all the electronic stuff and stuff like that. That's fine. I understand that, but yeah, you do. We oldsters still like to think of Burris the way it was.
So, are there any like memories or classes or funny little things that you still either like think about or pops up in your memory every time from time to
Oh
time
God,
about Burris?
there's so many. I mean, I really thrived in Burris. I had such a great time. I mean, it was just exactly the kind of place for me because, at that time, I don't know what exactly it is now, but at that time, we're talking about, mid 70s, of course. Burris basically kind of allowed you to do what you wanted. I mean, it was pretty free, open. Somebody wouldn't say a little too loosey goosey. Who knows? Um, you could loaf and do nothing if you wanted to and still get by, or you could be really self-motivated and do a lot of stuff, and the professors and the whole administration allowed you to do that. And I think I was self-motivated, and I got into writing and publications and music and all sorts of other stuff. And I tell you, I mean, I am a professional writer. I have been for 40, 50 years. And Burris made that possible. I mean, it literally made that possible. So I owe a huge debt to Burris for that.
Yeah, I still think it's quite like um free and student motivated as it is, but if we do sit around, our grades are just gonna.
Yeah, sure. I'll tell you. Okay, the only drawback is uh, at that time, Burris only had a year of for high school. You only had to take a year of science, and they had this incredibly simple-minded thing called environmental science.
Oh no.
I don't even remember anything about it. Literally, I remember almost nothing of what we did there, and that's to this day I regret not studying more science either in high school or in college when I went to Brown. That was my own fault. I didn't take the courses because you didn't have to. Because I was in the I wanted to do writing and music and other stuff. Not science, but I've paid for it because I there are times when I wish I had a better scientific background. But and the other thing is, um, do you still call it social studies? I don't know what that
Yeah, social studies, history,
yeah, well,
any
see,
of
the
that.
Burris wasn't at that time very good on actual history. They covered important topics, stuff like that. But I came out of Burris not knowing a whole lot about, kind of the history of Western civilization, or let alone Eastern civilization, or other parts of the world. Who we hardly even touched upon that at all. And that hurt me in the sense that, I mean, when I got to college, I had to do a certain amount of catching up stuff, But aside from that, I'll tell you, it was fabulous. Especially, okay, junior year of Burris, a new English teacher showed up, a guy named Robert C. Rose. He must be long retired by now, but he was a good guy and I took to him a lot because he promoted writing and journalism and that sort of thing, and he really got me involved in things like the newspaper, the yearbook. I actually set up my own literary magazine that I ran off, with a couple of friends of mine on Ditto and mimeograph. I'm not sure you know what those are. Very primitive time of printing back then, and they ran them off in the school, office there. I think in the first year, let me see, the forum came out at least, I don't know, maybe twice a month. Is that possible? I don't know. It was quite a lot. And then next year it was only once a month. It was too much work. But there was two other guys who were my co-editors, and they helped a lot. But lots of people contributed stories and poems and essays and whatever, and people liked it because at the time, the only kind of publication like that was a year-end thing called literary lapses. Not the best title in the world, but whatever. They were trying to make a joke, I guess. But so that only came out once a year. So right at the end of the school year. And so if you submitted something to this thing, at the beginning of the year, you'd have to wait like 8 or 9 months for it to be published. It's like that's not good. You're not, and you don't get any feedback because it came out right at the end of the year, and everybody goes off to summer vacation, and then nobody talks to you about what you've written. So that's one of the reasons why I started my little magazine. However, I understand there are like no publications at Burris now. Is that right?
No, I mean we just got a like writing center, which is like a writing club where you can send things in, and that's brand new.
Okay.
And then we've got we're completely overhauling the newsletter to make it more like a newspaper itself. for
Yeah,
like
I mean
stories and stuff.
our newspaper at the time, the Vanguard, only came out once a week, but that's fine. It
We don't
still came
even have a
out.
newspaper. We just have the
Uh,
newsletter that
uh,
goes out to people who sign up for it. But we're trying to make it more like a newspaper.
well, I hope you do because I'll tell you that made a huge difference in terms of getting my stuff out there. I was writing fiction and poetry and all this other stuff. And a lot of it was crap. Of course, I didn't know that at the time. But whatever, I got good feedback from people, and even from professors or sometimes the teachers came back, and said, "Hey, this is not bad" or whatever. It got a response from people, and that really helped you because as a writer, you need that kind of feedback. Otherwise, you don't know if you're doing anything right or not. So I do hope that some sort of thing happens like that at Burris again because it certainly made a huge difference in my life.
Yeah, well, I think it also may help now that we have like a few very like specialized writing classes. Like we've got a creative writing class for like fiction and
Hmm.
stories. We've got screenwriting, which I think is really
Hmm.
cool,
Yeah.
along with a bunch of other like film lit or like we've got Holocaust lit.
Wow.
Um,
No, that's good. That's all
yeah,
good. The other thing is, yeah, in my day, the Burris, the library wasn't good for like fiction, especially contemporary fiction. Well, yeah, I guess maybe they don't expect to. The library is actually pretty well stocked with books of nonfiction and all that sort of thing. So what I ended up doing was either buying little paperbacks, although I didn't have much money at the time, but or go to the public library. The public library in Muncie's at that time were really good, and I think they've kind of gone downhill. Though I can't swear to that, but I don't know. I went to the main library a lot. I went to that John F. Kennedy branch a lot. Rode my bicycle up there, and that was they had a huge selection of stuff. And I focused on fantasy, horror, science fiction, that sort of thing. That was my field. It still is my field after all these years. I'm still doing a lot of work in that field, but I got started there reading the books in the public library, not so much the Burris Library.
I think that's the exact opposite nowadays because the Burris Library, I struggle to find anything that's like not fiction. We have like a whole aisle that's not fiction, but it's not that big because the library got reduced in size after the
Yeah,
renovations.
yeah, that's the thing. I think I did go through the library and said, "Oh, gee, where are all the books?" I mean, I wear books now come in so all sorts of different forms, electronic, whatever. I understand all that, but I'm still kind of devoted to print. I
Oh,
like
absolutely.
I like the printed book, but
I completely agree with you.
yeah. So tell me about the music program because I really did a lot of stuff in music. There was orchestra, choir, band. I mean, it was great, and we had really good teachers there at the
Yeah,
time.
we still do. I'm involved in both the orchestra and the choir.
Mm,
Um, we had to we've been cycling through a couple of orchestra teachers in the past few years because the one that had been here for a while retired, and then the other one left to a different school, and then we
mm.
had an intermittent one for about half a year, and now we have one that's been here for a couple of years since
That's
COVID,
good.
and she's fantastic.
Mm,
The Burris Orchestra, we may be small. We're very small right now.
mm. Meaning what exactly? How,
We
how many?
have one bass, three cellos,
Okay.
five violas, and like maybe 12 total violins.
That isn't all that small, really speaking. I mean, I think ours may have been slightly larger at the time, but not much. Actually, I don't think we ever had five violas. That's a lot of violas,
Oh yeah,
actually.
no, this is a like influx of violas.
Yeah, that's been pretty impressive. But anyway, yeah, and of course, we did a lot of music for that level, which is usually music from the 18th century, the Baroque era. So we did a lot of Vivaldi and Bach and Handel and all that stuff, and it was fabulous. I loved it. And I think we performed at least a couple times a year, obviously in the auditorium. I think once or twice we performed over at BSU. There's some sort of
Lucina or Emmons?
I don't think Emmons that was too big for us. Maybe actually we were. There's the is there a youth symphony orchestra in Muncie? Uh,
In the Indiana area, yeah.
which would consider the whole. I mean, it
Yeah.
would be for all the schools in Muncie. I was part of that for a while.
Hmm.
My teacher John Cooley, who unfortunately died long ago, but he wanted me to pursue the violin as a career. I said I kind of want to be a writer. I'm sorry. That's just, I mean, I like the violin, but I didn't want to make a career out of it because music, for me, music was hobby is not the right word because it meant so much to me. It was very important to me, and it still is. But I didn't want to make it my career because I didn't want to make depend on it for my living. I want to put it as something I go for relaxation and stuff like that. Writing, I'm happy to do writing as a career. So he was kind of disappointed, but so I actually went after I left Burris. I dropped the violin altogether. I mean, literally, I just stopped altogether. Didn't even try out for the Brown Orchestra, anything like that, or anywhere. I eventually picked it up again, and now I still have my old instrument that I got when I was in Burris. I bought a violin at that time. Still play it very occasionally, but that's about it. What instrument do you play?
I play the violin as well.
Do you?
Mm-hmm.
I don't regret a single minute of playing the violin. It's been hugely rewarding and satisfying to me. I tried to compose music, and Burris actually performed a couple of my pieces.
Really?
For string orchestra. Yeah, it was kind of imitative of the Baroque stuff that I was playing. Naturally, what do you expect? I'm not exactly a world class composer, but John Cooley said, "Hey, this stuff's not bad. Let's see if we can get it done," and we did. In fact, I conducted once. I think not my own stuff, but I conducted a piece um, uh, with the Burris Orchestra. That was kind of fun.
That sounds
So yeah,
nice.
yeah, so Burris allows that sort of thing to happen, and it makes such a big difference in motivating you to do more. I think.
Yeah. We have a couple concerts a year. This year, we're
Mm.
splitting some of the pep band responsibilities up with the band and the orchestra.
Yeah.
So some of the basketball games are getting a pep orchestra instead of a pep band,
How
which is
funny.
going to be very fun.
That's wild.
Uh,
Uh,
and we have played in Emmons before with a guest pianist, which was very fun.
ooh.
And we played in Lucina at Ball State because that's a
Hmm.
smaller performance hall.
Yeah.
Um, and this year, actually, for solo and ensemble stuff, when we don't perform it for solo and ensemble, we're going to Quinlan and Fabish, which was like Muncie Music before it was bought,
Hmm.
and we're performing in that area with like a little coffee house thing for parents and to come see, and I think that's really fun.
Oh yeah, that's great. Yeah, we had a lot of little, I sometimes I just got together with a couple of my friends, played, quartets or whatever, and that's just so much fun. And we just mostly did it on our own time. But yeah, and the choir, I think does it work like the same we did when if you were in the orchestra, you could go to choir once a week, right? That's because they rehearse at the same time.
Yeah, so
So
it's kind of like that. It's more when the concert gets to when it gets close.
mhm.
The choir director, Mr. Jackson, he sends the people who are not in the actual choir like class the music. We practice it on our own time, and when it gets closer to the concert days, he'll pull us out of class to practice
Uh-huh.
with the full choir.
Okay.
Um, and that's sometimes during last period too, when we get the entire middle school and high school choir, because
Yeah, I'll
orchestra and
tell
choir
you,
rehearse during first period.
they had choir at like 8 in the morning. It's like, God,
Oh gosh, still how
I,
it is these
I,
days.
you really can't sing well that early in the morning. Obviously trained singers hate singing that early because opera singers take like 4 hours to warm up. So that's why you never have morning performances of opera. You always, the best you can do is a matinee. But yeah, singing 8 in the morning, that was tough. But playing is fine. I mean, you can just pick up the violin anytime. But yeah, that was the thing. But whatever. So I'm glad that's still going because a lot, as you probably know, a lot of other high schools throughout the nation, they kind of had to cut back on music programs and what they considered, they would consider sort of non-essential, but to my mind, they are essential because to make you a fully human being in my estimation, you need that sort of stuff and art and all that stuff. Aside from just science and reading and whatever else. You don't want to just focus
Math.
on test taking and stuff like that. Ugh,
Ugh.
horrible. Um, but whatever. So
Yeah.
I think Burris needs to hold on to that. I think it will.
Well, have you heard what they've done with the middle school recently? Like the way they overhauled a lot of the stuff.
Uh, not specifically. See, that's another thing. The terminology is kind of funny because I never heard the term middle school. That we called it just junior high school, and that was only seventh and eighth grade, and then ninth grade, 9, 10, 11, 12 is high school. But now I understand what is middle school cover. Is that sixth, seventh, eighth,
Sixth,
or
seventh,
something?
eighth.
Okay, so how does that work now?
So at Burris, they've completely pretty much overhauled grades and a lot of assignments and tests.
Mm-hmm.
And they get to choose classes that they want to do. They'll still take like some things that are related to math. But what they do is they try to make all those classes and electives they take relative to stuff that in the real world. Like they have a lot of unique classes. Like they've done a whole thing on theater where kids wrote and directed and produced their own show to perform for
Oh.
parents. There's a surviving outdoors class. We now have a like gardening thing, along with like costuming or cosmetology, like stuff like that, to introduce middle schoolers to stuff like that early.
That's great. That sounds fabulous. I mean, I'm not sure I personally would have done some stuff like that, but
Oh, me neither.
I don't know. It's good for people if that broadens their interest and keeps them engaged. Although theater and drama stuff, I hope the high school still has.
Oh, we still have we do 2 shows a year,
Hmm.
a musical and a stage play.
Wow, that's
Which
great. Yeah, my sister did a lot of art, a lot of theater. She was I think she directed some plays.
Really?
Yeah, I'm surprised. Yeah, she was really really into it, and she acted. She did. I remember her performance of Puck in Midsummer Night's Dream. Oh, she was fabulous. She was a good Puck, shall we say? Just what I would expected Puck to be. And they did modern stuff. They did some Woody Allen plays. Don't Drink the Water, I think, is one of them. Can't remember else. My class, or at least my high school, we put on Agatha Christie's 10 Little Indians, and that was really, it's a detective thing, where everybody's apparently dies. It's like all 10 characters die. It's like, wait, what's going on here? Who's the murderer if they're all dead? But I think we did a pretty good job of it. That was fun. I remember
we
that.
recently put on a musical adaptation of Rick Riordan's The Lightning Thief of the Percy Jackson series,
Oh,
which was very fun. I'm a big theater guy. That's my thing.
good.
Um,
So,
and we did Little Shop of Horrors last year, which was
that's
fun.
fabulous. That's always fun.
Yeah.
So that's a theater version. It must be, I suppose.
It was a musical first, actually.
Oh, was it?
Well, there was the original.
The film way back when,
film.
yeah.
And then they turned it into a comedy musical, and then they adapted the movie off of that.
All right.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
It's a very fun show, for sure.
Yeah, I bet. I don't know who. Yeah, how do you do things like sets and stuff? I mean, you just. Yeah.
Well, the directors and assistant directors are actually students from Ball State from the theater education major.
Okay.
They come down, they direct, they help build the sets. We have a bunch of like spare wood here stored for the theater, and paints. And the students and the directors work together to make the set. Like we took a whole weekend to paint the set together in Little Shop. The one for Lightning Thief was very minimalistic, so they did it themselves. But
all right, sounds good. Yeah, what was I gonna say? Yeah, is my field of horror and fantasy and stuff. There are some good plays in that field, and more serious ones too. Sort of actual horror plays that might be fun to do. But whatever. Yeah, I'm not a theater guy. I like the theater. I like going to the theater, but I'm a terrible actor. And although the funny thing is, I actually recently wrote a screenplay, even though I knew nothing about writing screenplays. Okay. My big subject of interest, which I started at, in Muncie and at Burris, is this writer H.P. Lovecraft, from New England. And one of the reasons I went to Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island, is because he's from there, and I knew that. Even in Burris, I learned that he was lived there, and a lot of his papers and manuscripts and stuff are at Brown University. So I said, okay, I got to go to Brown University. I didn't care it was the great Ivy League institution, but I just wanted to go there for Lovecraft. And I went there, and it was still spending my whole life studying Lovecraft. But I got together recently with a guy who's done some small films for Disney and stuff like that. We wanted to write what is called a biopic about Lovecraft, a biographical portrait of Lovecraft, rather than just adapting some of his horror stories, which are out there a lot. I don't know if you've seen what just came out, Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities from
I have
Netflix.
not.
Yeah, it just came out on Netflix streaming. He's a big Lovecraft guy, Del Toro, and I've been very sporadically in touch with him. Um, but he claimed one of these days he used Lovecraft wrote this sort of novel about the Antarctic called At the Mountains of Madness, and Del Toro claims he wants to adapt it for the screen one of these days. He's been at it for many years, and he claimed once that he wanted me as his advisor, but we'll see if that happens. I'm not sure it's gonna happen, but who knows? Let's hope it does. But anyway, the point is that Del Toro, in this new Cabinet of Curiosities, he does adapt to Lovecraft stories, which is fine. And there's lots and lots of stuff like that out there. In fact, every year in Portland, Oregon, there's a H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival, where people come together. They're not all Lovecraft films, but they're, just, whatever. But that's kind of the focus there. So, but nobody has done a biopic. Nobody's portrayed Lovecraft himself, in his life. And I got together with this guy and said, "Hey, let's do something." And he got somebody else to write a screenplay, which I thought was just awful. I mean, it was so much not what I wanted to be like. So I said, "Guy, please let me do it myself." So in like 8 days, I wrote my own screenplay, sort of following his formatting. I don't know much about how screenplays are really written, but I just threw this stuff out there. He kind of put it into proper form. And now we're kind of shopping this around and hoping we can get the money to film it one of these days, but maybe.
That sounds awesome.
Well, the thing about the movie industry is it all comes down to money. It's just all money. If you don't have money, you can't make a film. So that's where, I think we have a good product. It's just a matter of talking to the right people and saying, "Hey, give us a couple million and we'll see what we can do." That's where we're at. But
So you went to Brown University. Was that like right after Burris?
yep. It's funny because my senior class was only 73 people. I don't know
We
what.
have even less than that.
Really, yeah, I thought so. Which is okay. That's good. I loved it because by that time, certainly you knew everybody in your senior class, and you knew even some of the undergraduates or lesser classmen, and they all knew you. They all revered you as a senior. They're like, thought we were gods or something. That's fine. But I was only one of 3 people in my class who went out of state for college. Yeah, it's kind of strange. A lot of people went to BSU or Indiana University. Some people didn't go to college, which is fine also, whatever they want. And so a lot of people still are right in the state, certainly, but I just said I needed to get out of here. I mean, Indiana's great. I love growing up in Indiana. It's a very typical American kind of childhood, adolescence. It's a great place for that sort of thing. But I wanted something more. I wanted sort of the more kind of intellectual atmosphere of the East Coast. And so, yeah, I went to Brown and then went to Princeton for a PhD, which I never finished. And then I worked in New York publishing for a while, and quite a while actually, and then decided to go as a freelance writer. And for various reasons, I ended up in Seattle, Washington, which is where I am now, and I love it out here. It's the West Coast is just fabulous, and so I've been all over, but still have this sort of nostalgia for the Midwest. I still feel kind of like a Midwest boy in a lot of ways.
So tell me a little bit what you do these days. A little bit about your work.
Well, as I say, Lovecraft still is kind of a focus of mine. Although I've done so much now, there's not a whole lot left for me to do. I'll tell you, one of the things I did was this guy Lovecraft wrote literally thousands and thousands of letters, and they're fascinating letters. I mean, all apart from his fiction. His fiction's great. He wrote some poetry, which is kind of interesting sometimes, essays, but these letters are just amazing. He was writing to all sorts of people, long letters, all handwritten. It's like this was back in the 20s and 30s. He loved writing with a fountain pen, and just always looking for the best kind of fountain pen to make him allow him to write freely. But anyway, so we have a lot of these letters. There's some are at Brown, some are wherever, some are in private hands. For the last literally let me see, about 15 years, I've been editing 25 volumes of these letters. We're almost done. Next year, we will actually be done. I can't believe it. Four and a half
Wow.
million words. 4.5 million words of Lovecraft's letters finally getting out there. There's one publisher based in New York, the small press that's published all this stuff, and it's I'll tell you that's to my mind is my life work. Aside from the fact that I wrote this huge biography, which has now been translated in a couple languages, including, by the way, we just got a deal with the Chinese. The Chinese want to translate my biography, which is pretty amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I was blown away. And it's already been, it's just got translated into Russian, or at least the first volume of it. It's a huge 2 volume thing. It's like 1,200 pages. God, I wrote it in the 1990s, and anyway, and it's been translated into French and German and Italian, Spanish, Polish, I think. Anyway, so yeah, but Lovecraft then led me to other writers of horror fiction, and both before and after. There's some, I've done some work with Stephen King, although not that much. I actually don't think King is not that good a writer, quite frankly. There are a whole lot of writers out there who are way better than him in this field, but they don't get the attention because he's just been kind of dominating things for a
He's
while.
Stephen King.
He's Stephen King. What can you do? But I mean, whatever. And Lovecraft has taken me other directions also. I mean, these letters, made me aware that of all these other interests that he had, and sort of I've been sort of following those as well. So that's it's been very rewarding.
That's really cool. I actually before this Zoom call, um, I looked up a couple of your books,
Yeah,
just to see and they are big.
they are pretty. Some of them are big. Yes, I mean, and you can't be helped. That's just the way they are.
Yep.
Just what can you do? I don't deliberately. I don't set out to write big books. It just they just turn out that way. I will tell you. I hope this is not somewhat controversial, but one of the things that Lovecraft led me into was atheism. He was a great atheist. I've been an atheist forever, and I believe there's work to be done in that field. I've done some anthologies of atheism. I'm now writing a history of atheism in Western civilization. I wrote the first volume, which goes down from prehistory to 1600 in 200,000 words. That is a big book, and now I'm working on
That
the
is a
second
big
volume.
book.
That is pretty big, but and I'm shopping in the first volume around. Let's see if somebody publishes it. I'm sure somebody will. I don't know who exactly, but it'll get out there. But that's I find that a very interesting field, and so I've done again, but again, even that sort of started in some ways with Lovecraft.
Wow.
He's yeah, he takes you to so many different fields because he had a lot of varied interests, and I'll tell you, at Burris, I kind of turned some of the other my classmates on to Lovecraft, and we made some this magazine that I did had some kind of Lovecraft imitations in there, and or we had a really good cover artist, a guy named Mark King. He still lives in the area, and I think he does work professionally as a graphic artist. And he did some fabulous covers. It had some little Lovecraft, kind of in jokes, sort of buried away in the cover design. So that was fun.
Yeah,
I hope you have a good art program there.
Oh, we still have a lot of art classes.
Good.
With some good teachers too. So still going strong.
Yeah, that's great. We had some. Yeah, we had with the art teachers were always kind of a little offbeat, which is fine. That's great. I think they should be, but they were some characters there among the art teachers there. But
I do need to read some Lovecraft. I haven't yet. I love
well, it's an acquired taste. He's kind of he's I wouldn't say hard reading, but he does use big words sometimes. But I think the atmosphere is just amazing. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to describe. And knowing something about New England because a lot of the stories are set in New England, but he just kind of creates this whole universe of horror and fear and terror, and it's kind of all encompassing. It just kind of sucks you in. And so many people have tried to write, I wouldn't say imitations exactly, but sort of using Lovecraft as a springboard. Stephen King has written a couple Lovecraft stories or Lovecraft related stories. Peter Straub wrote a lot. I knew Peter Straub actually quite well. He died recently. Yeah, he was a good guy. I liked him. Even Anne Rice wrote a novel called The Tale of the Body Thief, which is at least partially inspired by Lovecraft. And she says though in the book. Uh, so anyway, so yeah, he's out there, and as I say, Del Toro is a huge fan. John Carpenter is a huge Lovecraft
Oh
fan. He
yeah.
did a number of his films are sort of inspired by Lovecraft, so he's everywhere now.
Yeah. Well, I love the vibe of Lovecraftian horror. I always have. I've just never read, his stuff.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
definitely should.
gotta read my editions. In fact, I did 3 editions with Penguin Classics where I have all these pompous ass notes. You don't have to read the notes, but I think the notes help you to sort of understand kind of the background of all these stories. So I
Wow.
recommend picking up the Penguin Classics editions.
I may pick those up.
Yeah,
Well, before we end, is there anything else you want to talk about?
I don't think so. As I say, I mean, to me, I mean, really, Burris changed my whole life. That's it's as simple as that. And so I always have it's always going to have a big place in my heart. And, I hope I'll come back for the 50th reunion. In fact, I may have to set it up because was it in 2026 some of my classmates did meet, a couple of weeks ago for a sort of an informal lunch. Whoever wanted to show up, and I said, "Come on, guys, we gotta get together here and get a good reunion going." And we'll see what happens. Of course, you'll probably have graduated by then, right? I
I'm
suppose.
graduating at the end of this year.
Oh well. So where do you think you'll go to college?
Hopefully Ball State because
Okay.
my dad works there.
Mm.
So I get the huge discount.
I can imagine. I hope they still have a good music program. They certainly did in my day.
Yeah. The Ball State
Yeah.
orchestra is fantastic.
Good, good.
Seen
No,
them a
they
couple
had,
times.
yeah, there's some great concerts, and really some actual really you know high powered, kind of virtuosos there. It was quite impressive in my day.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah,
thank you so much for taking some of your time to talk to me.
okay, great fun.
Yeah. This has been Back at Burris. I'm your host, Graham, and thank you for listening.